how many were you taking at your absolute peak?
I mean,
to try and feel something?
I put it this way. I tell people I was more of an addict, not as much of an abuser, maybe 12, 15 pills a day. I know people that were taking
That's still
so
a lot,
much more.
man.
Oh yeah, no, it was, 3 in, 3 in the afternoon, 3 at night.
Wow.
I'd set my alarm because I used to do international business. My then wife knew that there was something wrong, but she couldn't do anything. I would set my alarm at 3 a.m, literally wake up, snort 3 painkillers, and go into the living room of our apartment in New York City and get on the phone and start calling people in Australia and England, and became a way of life.
Wow.
And people were so blinded by the fact that I built up such a big agency.
Success.
He doesn't have a problem.
People were willing to look the other way.
He
because
doesn't
of
have a
success.
problem.
Welcome to the Excellence Project. My name is Eric Worre, and today we talk with agent to the stars, Darren Prince, on early entrepreneurship, networking skills, what it's like to work with celebrities. And then the second half, we talk about his addiction, his overcoming addiction, and helping other people to overcome addiction, deal with self-worth, build self-esteem. A dual conversation of sorts. I think you're going to enjoy it. So with no further ado, let's dive into my conversation with Darren Prince. Darren Prince.
I made it, baby.
How are you?
All good.
Finally, we connect.
Yeah.
We have these other friends. We have all these different things. You are, what do people know you most for? Is it to be the agent to the stars? Is it like this super networked guy? Is it a guy who is navigating recovery and helping other people do the same thing? When people think of you, what do you think your brand is?
I think it's a little bit of everything. Obviously, the agent to the stars has been the longest, almost 30 years. And, somehow navigating and developing this incredible network. But the most important one to me is, global recovery advocate, having celebrated 15 years. The other two pale in comparison.
Yeah.
Because for so long, I thought that's what life was about for Darren Prince. But, through this mental health crisis and my own journey to recovery from a 24-year opiate addiction, I've truly found my purpose as, the forefront of this opiate epidemic, drug addiction, mental health, and alcoholism.
Right. All right. Fantastic. Well, here's what I want to do then. I want to start with the business stuff, the tips and strategies to network, what it takes to do what you've done, the lessons that you've learned. We call this the Excellence Project for a reason. Yep. You committing to excellence in the things that you do.
Yep.
And then we'll get to that'd be like the first half. Second half is to talk about addiction recovery and now mission to be able to help others.
Yep.
Fair enough?
Yep.
All right.
Sure.
So you, what got you into the talent representation business? And did you do anything else prior to that?
I did. So every time this comes up, it's always pretty fascinating to the interviewer, because my way of coming up as an agent is it's pretty much like unlike anybody else. I started a baseball card company in 1984 called Baseball Card City.
So like trading cards.
Trading cards. And anything that wasn't baseball cards in the 80s, especially around that time, they weren't popular like it was now. Nobody cared about football, basketball, hockey. It was always about baseball. And I started a company, Baseball Card City, at 14. And my dad was a huge inspiration because I wasn't the best student, but I had some fixation on baseball cards. I became a mathematical genius, studying the stats on the back, and spent 3 weeks getting ready for a baseball card show one day, and made over $1,000 on that Sunday afternoon in 1984 at the Holiday Inn in Livingston, New Jersey, where I'm from. And I didn't look back. I built up a business. By the time I was 16, I was running multiple full-page ads in a trade publication called Sports Collectors Digest that were probably $300-400 a week. I was the first, not just kid, I'd say probably first adult at 16 that had a cell phone from a company called Bell Atlantic. And it was even different. It was a big, heavy aluminum battery in a leather case with a rubber antenna. And, $3-4 a minute. But in between class at high school, I'd have it in my locker. I'd be answering the phone from stockbrokers calling me from the ads in Sports Collectors Digest. And it probably made $250,000 at 16 in 1986.
At 16 years old, he made $250,000 buying and selling trading cards.
Buying and selling.
What was your
cards.
secret? I mean, did you figure out a niche inside of there, or did you corner a piece of the market? Or
I think at the time, I just the timing of it. There was such a boom that you could have missed on 50%, and everybody was making money. Just walking into trade shows and buying, selling, trading. I think making a name for myself as a brand, which eventually by 1986, my dad said, "You're no more baseball card city." I got the name. You are now the Prince of Cards.
The Prince of Cards
became my moniker, my gimmick. And I started getting publicity, New York Times and the Daily News and the New Jersey Star Ledger. And I realized the power of that because there was no internet back then.
Right.
And it started getting me notoriety. We would go to different baseball card shows in different states, and I'd be recognized. And people were like, "Oh, I got something for you, the Prince of Cards, a Prince of Cards." So it gave me almost like first shot of getting, collections that people wanted to sell because they trusted me because they were selling advertising. Fair price. Yeah, so it lent me credibility in my name. And I eventually...
Did you just self-fund as you went, buying bigger collections?
So here's what happened. Help? My collection was originally valued, believe it or not, about $9,000 when I started. My dad was blown away how I got a collection of $9,000. So I had a newspaper out. I was a busboy at a diner. I was squeezing orange juice at a supermarket called King's in Livingston. And I was working at a pizzeria called Calabria. It's a late bloomer, really, with like dating. It didn't even matter to me, or partying at that age. And all my friends who wanted to go buy wine coolers and beer illegally, like they always wanted quick cash. So I'd buy all their baseball cards. I also realized that the older cards that some of them had, and that they were a little bit mildewy, and they always had this terrible aromatome of people named Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth. They had no idea what they were worth. And they wanted the Dom Mattingly's, the Tony Gwynns, the Darryl Strawberries, the Wade Boggs. So I would trade anything they wanted on the newer stuff for these older cards, which I knew had tremendous value. Tremendous value. I mean, some of these cards were, even back then, $500 to $1,000 a card.
So is this how you got connected with Dan Fleischman, the love of cards?
No,
do you still have it? Do you still have a love of cards?
I still do. I got back into it. Dan actually only got into it probably, I think it was about 4 years ago, right before my 50th birthday. Because he actually
cards and coffee thing.
At my he actually wound up going to meet Gary Vee. We talk about this story all the time. It was supposed to be a quick few hours, and he spent the entire weekend. He was hooked. But my era was so different because it was buzzing just as it is today. But think about it, man. No internet, no. I mean, the way that we did it back in the 80s, it was like fax machine, email, fax machine
you have
blast.
like a little catalog to tell you what the values.
Yeah, that was it. There was a guide called CCP, Current Card Price Guide, and it was a newspaper. And then we had Beckett eventually that came out.
I remember the Beckett thing.
In the late 90s. And then the smart ones would rush subscription Sports Collectors Digest for a Tuesday delivery. It cost about $500 a year because that was my knowledge to get in all the buys. My dad always taught me the money's made in the buy, not in the sell. So I was getting it rushed, and it was like printing money. I mean, I would be able to get to the ads way before anybody else got their subscriptions on a Thursday or Friday. And just, I think, between that, going to different shows, building up my brand, I eventually went to college, which was a complete waste. My freshman year, I dropped out of University of Bridgeport with the 0.86 GPA.
Before you continue your college, I went to one trimester. I barely escaped high school. Do you think the card collectible biz is still going to grow?
It is. It skyrocketed during the pandemic. It got overhyped.
Yeah, but do you think it's still going to?
There's
just more and more and more. It's limitless.
More and more and more. There's so much. There's so much money into that hobby now. You have so many sophisticated real investors of blue chip companies that there's such a love, there's such a passion, and when you have individuals of that level with such wealth that are buying some of these historic valued cards, they're really never going to ever resell them. So
you see like these Pokemon cards,
yeah,
these Yu-Gi-Oh cards and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think this box breaking became just such a sensation.
When people open,
you can buy a box for 500, 1,000 and pull something crazy.
There's an element of gambling in it.
It's just incredibly exciting. Kenny Golden's been a friend of mine since I was 15. He's got that hit TV show on Netflix, and we were just talking last week. I mean, I think it was Logan Paul that opened up, $2 million in Pokemon cards. I specialized in that too back in the 80s. So I would sell the ones that were from the 1950s and 60s. I eventually found that getting in touch with some of the old distributors of Topps and Bowman and all the card companies that you've heard about. And these guys literally would have boxes and boxes of cards that were never opened with the old gum inside. And it was a crazy rush back then because it was almost like legalized gambling.
Sure.
And you could pull Pete Rose rookie out of a 1963 Topps pack or Mickey Mantle 55 Bowman. And it was just a craze then. So I'm not surprised where it got to now because I think they've made it not just the mega expensive stuff. I think they've made it exciting for any class. You don't just need to be the uber elite where you could buy a pack for $5 and there is that Willy Wonka opportunity.
Right.
Where you might be able to pull something that's worth $100,000.
So I got to ask you how did you learn how to network at such a young age? Because one, buying, selling.
Yep.
Two, learning how to pitch.
Yep.
How to negotiate, how to network, how to get in touch with different people. Mm-hmm. Who are the valuable people? How can you build friendship and bring relationship to them? Yep. I'm of the belief that all business is conversation. You just need to get in conversation, stay in conversation, and good things tend to show up so long as interests are aligned, values are aligned. So was it natural for you to be able to network like this, to be able to figure out that you're going to run a full page ad? Who designed your ad? Who helped you place it? You're like that kid in Almost Famous, who finds his way into the big world of rock and roll.
So my dad actually owns a direct mail coupon advertising company. I had a typesetting company called Typesetting and Design. So my ads always sit out. I always spent days and days for the next week, and the 3 reps that ran that department would just lay out the most incredible typesetted ads that just popped over everybody else. So I had that advantage. And
well, that was nice. You have that. So you figure out the advertising piece.
That.
What about the networking piece? I'm really curious about how you learned it and how you've honed your networking ability.
So the networking, it was interesting because I was a very, very insecure kid. Very broken, no confidence, no sense of self-esteem, always qualified as learning disabled, put in small classrooms, told what I couldn't do. But there was something with numbers and baseball cards that my dad noticed at a very young age. And he sat me down one day and said, you don't have what most of your friends have up here. He goes, but I found something that you have that none of them do. And I remember the talk like yesterday. It still gets me emotional because he's not here anymore. He's like, if we focus on that, because you're going to make something of yourself that nobody ever dreamed of.
Find that thing.
Yep.
What's that thing?
And
what was that thing for you?
That thing was my ability to work with numbers. And it made me almost like so cool in this own baseball card world that people would start looking at me very differently than people did in high school. And I actually felt like I was the big guy. I was the cool guy. I was the one that everyone came to for advice on stats on how many home runs and how many of these cards were made. And it gave me a sense of confidence.
So for those listening and not watching, you can watch on YouTube if you're not already doing it. But he was pointing to his head. You're saying your dad said you didn't have it between the ears, like the other kids, but you knew this thing, which is kind of a backhanded compliment. I mean, it's nice, but it's just like, hey kid, you're not Einstein. but you got this thing figured out, right? I didn't fit in traditional education because I had a very difficult time doing 20 minutes of this topic and then 20 minutes of English and then 20 minutes of math and then 20 minutes of social studies, 20 minutes of science. If they would have done 3 months of mathematics and I could have the time to absorb the ideas and get some traction, I'd have been fine. But this little spaced out dripping on you in 1,000 different directions, I can never get my focus. It just didn't work for me.
Exactly.
So I was frustrated the entire educational experience until I got out and became an entrepreneur. And then I could circle it long enough, more than somebody else could, until I finally mastered it. And once I mastered it, I was good. So it sounds like you kind of did the same thing around numbers to start.
Exactly.
All right. But it wasn't just the numbers. No. You were able to, you had to learn how to buy. You had to learn how to sell, how to negotiate,
marketing,
how
advertising,
to network, how to market, how to advertise,
how to make sure my display and my table were nicer than everybody else's.
Yeah. So that's not just numbers.
That eventually came from just being around my dad.
So you were immersed in it?
I would always have, even back then, I would have almost like model type of girls. I would always hire 4 of them with Prince of Cards jackets on in front of the booth. We'd always have the most incredible layout and display cases, almost like you're walking in and looking at the most elite diamonds with these booths with the lighting in them. And you would look inside and see, some of the most expensive cards in the world.
Your idea or your dad's idea?
That eventually became mine, because he would always say, because, I thought this, but I didn't think this over the top. But that also came, now I look back as somebody in recovery, that was a deep sense of insecurity. I needed that attention even back then. I wanted everybody to see that, look at me and look at everybody else.
You needed the attention, but it actually ended up working as a branding thing that I heard once, and I can't remember where I heard it from, that successful people have 3 things in common. 1, they have a belief that they're going to succeed. They don't know how necessarily, but they're going to, for sure. They have an almost crippling sense of insecurity that they're not enough. And 3rd, they're willing to delay gratification. They're willing to just kind of, do you think that that's accurate?
Yeah.
Generally? Yeah. Was it true for you?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I think I'm as whole as I've ever been with all 3 of those things, but 100% I can identify with all 3.
All right. So when does the card experience come to an end, and why does it come to an end?
So it ended in 1989. I sold the company. I sold my database.
Why?
I was at a convention in White Plains, New York one day, and I saw Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio. I think there was like Pete Rose, and I was mesmerized that these lines were wrapped around the corner at these baseball card shows. And I was trying to figure out what was going on. And they said, oh, people wait in line all day and they sign autographs and take pictures. And I went into the back room at the baseball card show, and I see dealers with like photos and baseballs and hundreds of them waiting for these players to come back there. And I knew through a mutual friend at that point who Muhammad Ali's agent was, Harlan Werner, who became a mentor and a dear friend. And I called him the next day. This show was on a Sunday. I called him on a Monday and said, can you connect me with Harlan Werner? He's like, absolutely. And so Harlan was Muhammad Ali's agent. And I wanted to go after the biggest name on planet Earth. And nobody was bigger than Ali.
So when you saw this, you're in the card biz. And then you go, oh, wait. There's levels to this. There's another level. I don't have to be like scrambling around buying and selling cardboard. I can represent
these things,
the big people, and make connections and have a bigger piece of the interaction.
And there was also that deep sense of insecurity. How cool would this be
if they are friends?
For the kid that they are friends of mine. Like, I could work with these type of people. How much cooler is Darren Prince than just selling corny baseball cards? Now I'll really get popular with the women and in the media, and they'll really start recognizing me. That was as much of a driving force as the money.
So you see that, but you had an awareness that wasn't just about numbers; it was about opportunity.
Yeah,
you're like, there's levels.
Yeah.
Oh, you look behind the curtain.
Yep.
Well, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of. Oh, I see what they're going to do. Yep. They're just going to have them sign all of those, and then they're going to have scarcity, and they'll leak them out a little bit at a time, or they'll sign a number or something.
Like, it's kind of no different than me figuring out how to sell certain cards here and there, but I get to deal with celebrities now.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. So you make this decision. Once you see that, you just decided to sell your card business?
I sold the company. I basically got about $1 million from my database and all my cards. And I didn't
How
invest.
old were you at the time?
19. I didn't invest the money properly. I burned through a lot of it. My dad.
You're 19.
My dad and my uncle were trying to do everything that they can, but I was reckless. And
what was the most fun, reckless thing that you did with $1 million at 19?
I think I probably spent $125,000 on a sports car and a Rolex. So I probably.
What was the car?
Back then I had an Acura NSX, and I didn't just keep it as an Acura NSX. I put it on a flatbed to get it souped up with more horsepower. And yeah, I couldn't just be happy spending $95,000. It had to like have the bells and whistles.
Extra stuff. You're 19. What color?
It was like a teal green.
All right.
Crazy aftermarket rims.
Yep. Love it. All right. We've all done that. So you reach out to a new mentor, you get connected.
Yep.
And then you're going to
I
start at the top.
Yeah, I go right at the top, and Harlan explains to me on the phone, listen, you'll call Everlast, call my guy. He's got the trunks that Muhammad used to wear and gloves, and you can get photos here. So it just became a very special day because we actually had me and 5 guys from my office drove up.
Why would he let you in?
Well, he knew my mutual friend at the time who knew I was a good guy. So he basically put a good word in for me.
But did he get a piece?
No, the friend at the time didn't. It was just more friends helping friends.
Wow.
And he just wanted me to succeed.
Wow.
And
that's nice.
So yeah. And Harlan, kind of held my hand for how this was going to work. And he goes, I need to know the exact count, how many gloves, how many photos, how many trunks. These are the pens you need to use. You have to get a conference room at this hotel. That's where Muhammad's staying. His assistant Kim will come down with him. His attorney Lee will be there. I remember all the names. And just make sure everything's organized. Muhammad, does like talking and being chit-chat, but don't take too much advantage of, his time. Because at the end of the day, he still does have Parkinson's and he's got other work to do in town. And it just became the most magical day in my life.
What year was this?
This was the early 90s, so it would have been.
So it was before he got too shaky where he got uncomfortable.
Yeah, probably 91, I would say, or something, 92. So, and you were able to kind of understand him. He was a little slurring, but it was just magical because I never expected anything like it. And he was funny. He was showing us levitating tricks. It was just
the magic stuff.
The most incredible. Yeah, it was literally the only time in my life that I ever experienced being in the room with a celebrity. And I've been around the biggest in the world, from presidents and whatnot. There's something that would happen being in a room with Muhammad Ali that the minute you left was the most incredible freaking feeling of being with a mythical figure. Never happened to me before. And there's not a celebrity I've never been around from.
The only other one that I think was close to that was Michael Jackson.
I was going to say, Michael was somewhat. I mean,
he would stop. Cities.
I had several phone calls with Michael. There was a business project years ago. I think I actually played it for Newt today. I have a voicemail message, which is pretty funny. It still was different. Sure. Ali was Ali. The fact that when you look at Elvis giving Ali a robe, the special robe that he gave him, it was just different.
Different than Tyson at his peak?
Yeah, I mean, Mike I work with, he's incredible. I was around him probably for the first time in the mid-90s. I mean, I think they're all different in their own way. Hulk Hogan's a client. He had that wow factor too. Mm-hmm. I think Pele did. I was around Pele several times working with them.
Messi, Ronaldo.
Smoking Joe had it. Smoking Joe had it. Was a client forever too, where just more that blue collar, everyday type of guy that you were like, holy crap, that's Smoke. I mean, I would just see the biggest stars in the world go crazy.
It's all right. So you figure out the biz, you get an entry into the biz.
Yep.
So now you have all the stuff that he can sign.
So what happened was we would start.
How do you get him to agree to sign?
So
how's that whole machine work? Did you just pay a flat fee and he'll sign for an hour or something?
It was basically per piece. So I think the very first signing, I paid him $20,000 to sign 500 items. So it was $40 an item. So we started advertising in the same publication. And it was just unbelievable. Within like 6 weeks, which was 2 weeks before the signing, we literally almost pre-sold everything. So I remember I had
if you had all those, how many items was it?
500 items.
If you had all 500 of those items today, fresh, what would they be worth?
25x from back then, 25 to 30x.
Yeah.
So maybe 12 to 1500 an item.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. And so we basically had almost everything pre-sold. The day was incredible. And I speak to Harlan. He goes, Muhammad really enjoyed his time with you, as his team. And it was just like such an incredible feeling that him and I became such good friends. And he calls me up one day and says, I want to make an intro for you. There's somebody that I think would be incredible to do signings with. He doesn't do much. Magic Johnson. He goes, I'm very close with this guy, Lon Rose, and that was his player agent forever. And I said, I would love it, make a connection. And that was the beginning of my life changing.
Really?
Because to this day, he's my biggest client and one of my closest friends.
And special guy. One of the things I admire most about Magic Johnson, his achievements in sport are enormous. His achievements after, I'm even more impressed.
He's as close to Ali as anybody post career.
Really?
I mean,
as far as persona, or as far as
I'm
business?
saying as far as his post career achievements, there's not many that have done what they've done in their sport that they've actually started to surpass their legacy after their prime. Don't
you think he's way more?
Yeah, I do.
Because what he did with Starbucks, what he did with all the different companies, what he's doing with the Dodgers, what he's doing with the Washington.
As far as business, I think Ali, what he represented for charities, foundations, Parkinson's foundations, Goodwill. They're different.
He was one of the most courageous people I've ever witnessed in my lifetime, because of what he was able to stand up to as one man alone in the middle of a storm.
But they're both, what they've done after is breathtaking.
I've only had a few interactions. I've had a few interactions with the champ, and I've had a few interactions with Magic, and all of them have been lovely, and really nice people. I met the champ in his later days, so he's still showing up for charity things, and still being a good sport, and a good friend of mine was very, very good friends of his. So we were able to spend some time, but we weren't able to communicate as much as I would have loved to. And I wasn't going to be pushing the situation. But Magic is, when he shows up, he lights up a room. Comes in, big smiles.
That smile. So I'll cut to the chase of this, so we can get to the good stuff that people want to probably hear more about. So had an incredible day with Magic at a signing, very similar to Muhammad, but this one was different. This was a public appearance in Pomona. We totally hit it off. And I was like known as the king of private autograph signings, meaning at that point, Chevy Chase was one of our people, Pamela Anderson, Dennis Rodman. And we would basically broker deals for all different memorabilia companies, and then sometimes keep inventory for ourselves because our cost factor was lower than theirs. So we wanted some to maybe do more retail. And I made a mistake that almost cost me my business and my reputation. I talk about it very openly and honestly in my book, Aiming High. I was dealing with a guy in Chicago that was selling forensic document authenticated Michael Jordan memorabilia in Michael's peak. We probably sold a few $100,000 worth. And one day I get a call from the FBI that they want me to come to Chicago. Literally that afternoon, I was with Ali and Lonnie at the Essex House Hotel. So I'm thinking, I'm writing columns in the industry. This is great. They probably want me as a witness to look over some things. The next morning is when I realized, holy crap, this is a problem. They asked if I had an attorney that can come assist me on the trip. And I called my lawyer. He goes, do not call them back. You're bringing me with me. I don't know what's going on. The guy I was dealing with calls me up one day. These assholes are trying to get me on tax evasion. They got nothing. He paid me a check on everything. Don't even worry about it. I trusted the guy after 2 years, and I went out there and I sat down for an interview, and they took a lunch break. They asked me one time, did anybody ever complain about the stuff possibly being fake or forged? I'm like, no, never. I come back from a lunch break and they pull out a tape recorder. My office phone lines were tapped for 6 months. And there was an attorney in Hawaii that was complaining about something potentially not being authentic. And one of my sales rep was disputing that that's impossible. It's got forensic document experts that have authenticated this stuff. Long and short of, after a 2-year battle in and out of court, I got charged with making a false statement to the FBI. And
because one of your reps said something,
and
it was fake. Did you find out the stuff was fake?
I had a felony charge against me. To this day, I probably still have it. Who knows? But that was one of those moments in time where, I truly made lemonade out of lemons, because Muhammad Ali, Magic Johnson, Dennis Rodman, there's so many of them sent letters to the judge on my credibility, and
all you were doing was reselling.
They were trying to get me on mail fraud, but they wound up getting me on making a false statement to an FBI agent, because they knew I didn't know that the stuff was fake. Otherwise, why would I be selling it?
It wasn't a knowing false statement, though. That was your argument, I'm guessing.
It wasn't knowing, but they had to find something to charge me with.
Man, I'll tell you, if somebody wants to get you,
so
it's
at
crazy.
that point, I was literally refunding people's money, borrowing money to refund people, because my dad always taught me about reputation being the hardest thing to uphold and the easiest thing to lose. So I literally wound up almost $1 million in debt. And here I am at 26 years old. And my dad and I go on a fly fishing trip. And with the last $3,000 to my name, he was so pissed. Old school Jewish guy, didn't want me spending the money. But that fly fishing trip is a big reason why Prince Marketing Group exists today. We're in this beautiful stream in Alaska, and he looks over and he's like, what are you going to do, man? He goes, you're going to go back to the cards or the memorabilia? What's your next move? And I was like, Dad, I want to be an agent. I really think I could do this. Like, I get along with these celebrities. They trust me, but I don't have 8 years to go to law school. And he drops the fishing pole. He looks at me like I got 3 heads. He goes, law school? Where the heck did you come up with this? I go, well, I think agents are lawyers. He goes, Darren, don't you realize in life that life is about who you know, not what you know? Mm-hmm. You have the most incredible relationship in the world. That next time you see Magic, he stood in our corner. He knows about making mistakes. Why didn't you tell him your vision? And 3 weeks later, it happened. We were in Detroit, Michigan. He called me up from his hotel room. I was a few doors down, and said, hey, boy, what time you got to be ready? He said, okay, knock on my door. Come a few minutes early. I want to catch up. I haven't seen you in a couple of months. He's that personable, one-on-one. I go into his hotel suite. I sit down. He goes, man, how you doing? He goes, you coming out of all this? He goes, I heard that everything, worked out. You got probation, whatever. He goes, you'll be fine. I'll make sure like where your head is at. And I said, yeah. He's like, are you gonna? It was almost like he spoke to my dad. He's like, you gonna dabble around in that stuff anymore or what? I was like, Irvin, because I call him by his real name. I said, I got a vision for something I want to reply you. And my hands were sweating so bad, man. I was so nervous to bring this up, because I had the confidence I can do it, but my personal self-esteem was so broken, because here I am on the balls of my ass financially. And I told him, and he's like, do you have a good entertainment lawyer? I'm like, I don't know one. And he goes, well, here's the deal. I love you and I trust you. And I know about making mistakes. This was a few years after his HIV announcement. He goes, but you got a good heart and I love your family. He goes, and we're going to do this together. That I'm going to give you 2 years to work your butt off. But if you don't use me to bring in every top-notch celebrity name you can, I'm going to fire you before the 2 years is up. Because life, Darren, isn't about how successful I become. It's how successful I make you and everybody else around you and me. Because then it's your job to give that back to other people, to domino effect.
Great lesson. And great friend.
That was it.
Yeah, but you earned it. You earned your way in the room. You're in the trust. You earned the relationship. All of that.
And the whole agency became centered around Magic Johnson.
So you've built a huge agency. You help brands around the world. You represent major people, and you have access to everybody. So just tie a bow on this. In the world of networking, building a network and building strength of that network, give some tips, just rapid fire tips. If somebody else wants to build a network, connect with the world, bring value to that world, have a strong network, what advice do you have for them to build a strong network?
Stop focusing about the money. Focus on the person. Now, Nutza's here, a girl from American Idol, and ask her if she's ever laughed so hard in her life and how much fun we have and the spiritual connection, the outlook on life, and, energy and manifestation. Most of my clients are going to tell you the same thing about me. And not just
but how do you get in
not
the room?
Just celebrity wise, because
how do you get in the room in order to be able to focus on the person?
It's easy enough nowadays. I mean, there's so many different type of events that are going on, all sorts of entrepreneurial events, all sorts of celebrity-themed charity events. But the worst thing I think you could do is when you address somebody or you see them and it's always about, hey, I want to do this, or everybody's heard that doesn't work. Get to know the person. Try whatever you have to do to, make some small talk about a conversation where you might know something about their personal interest, and that can actually get you their email or their phone number, because I don't think there's enough of that. And that's always been my superpower. And I booked Tom Brady, I told you, for Grant Cardone 6-7 months ago, and he wanted to know more about me than I needed to know about him. And he was mesmerized about, oh my God, Bird and Magic, and how's Rick doing, and how's Hulk. I tell Rick send my love, and because they spend time together at Michigan with Jim Harbaugh. And I said to him when we were done, I go, Tom, listen, next time we do something, I was like, I know your schedule's nuts, but just like Magic and Larry and Charlie Sheen and Chevy, all my guys, Jerry Weston, I spoke for 30 minutes this morning. I was like, I'd love to just get some time to just chill in the room. Watch a game, whatever, and just catch up on life, because that's what matters the most to me. He goes, my man, he goes, you got it. He goes, that's like, I'm like that with everybody. I don't want to be this guy that's always like in your face about, networking. I think there's just not enough of that anymore. And I think that's so key, because people do business with people they like.
Love it. I just want to jump in and quickly interrupt this podcast interview and give those of you involved in network marketing a very special message. And that message is this: if you want to grow your business, I can help. If you're just getting started, you don't have any recruits yet, you don't have much of a team, I can help you get to your first 10 recruits. If you got some recruiting going on, but you need more help with duplication, I can help you on your journey from part-time to full-time. And if you're a serious player, I can help you scale and grow your business. All you have to do is go to goproacademy.com, goproacademy.com. Wherever you are in your journey of network marketing, this program will help you get where you want to go much, much faster. I've helped millions of people learn how to recruit. I've helped tens of thousands of people get to 6-figure a year income. And I've helped over 500 people get to a 7-figure annual income inside of this network marketing profession. I can help you too. Go to goproacademy.com, goproacademy.com. All right, let's pivot. Let's pivot to your passion. So you're at a summer camp.
Yep.
As a young boy.
14
years old. You got a stomach ache. And you're not feeling so good, maybe a little homesick.
Yep.
And what happens?
I asked the counselor to take me to the infirmary, and this nurse, Greta, I'll never forget her name, gave me this green cough-looking syrup in a plastic shot cup, and I took it. Tasted terrible, but I remember this insecure, broken, unconfident, no self-worth, goofy, unintelligent 14-year-old kid became whole.
Became whole?
Became whole within myself.
Like all of a sudden you felt like what you would assume other people felt normally.
I felt not just as good as everybody, I felt better.
Like
I
Superman.
felt smarter. I felt like Superman is what I tell people. And that green liquid introduced me to the world. But
What was the green liquid?
Demerol.
So
And when
Demerol.
Yep.
You take Demerol and you're like, whoa,
Yep.
this feels good. I like this.
Yep.
So I've heard this from people who have had addiction problems. Some people have a drink of alcohol and it's just like it doesn't change them. Other people, it lights them up like a Christmas tree.
Yep.
And from then on, they're like, I got to get that feeling back.
I got to get more.
So you got lit up like a Christmas tree.
I got lit up like the Christmas tree. When I got back to the bunk, that green liquid introduced everybody there to Darren Prince, the Darren Prince I needed to be. And I'm funny, I'm the cool one, I'm the popular one. I got all these ideas. They're looking at me like, you know, the first time they
Where'd
ever
you
heard me
come
act
from?
like this. And there was girls in the bunk next door, same thing. I just got courage to go next door and start flirting with girls at 14. And, you know, went to bed that night, slept great. There was no pain. But the very next night, I remember lying on the top of the bunk bed and there was no pain, Eric. But I was obsessing about that thought. What the heck was that? And I heel over and I tell the counselor, we got to go back to the infirmary.
So you fake it.
We did this for 3 straight weeks.
So you're faking it. There's something wrong. I
learned
need
how
that
to lie
again.
and con and manipulate and do whatever I needed to do. And I did it for literally 3 straight weeks because back then, you know, whether it was a controlled dose for substance or whatever, I mean, the nurse just knew that, you know, it helped me sleep. And my mom and dad came up for visitation day and found out what I was taking. And, you know, that was the end of that. But that wasn't the end of that because I had a dentist appointment probably a couple months after to get my wisdom teeth removed. And for anybody listening, 1 in 3 teens that go to a dentist appointment become addicts to opiates. It's a statistical fact. I was one of the 3. And I didn't realize they were opiates. I didn't realize there was any, you know, correlation between these white pills and the green liquid. But my mom gave me one and I was flying high again. And I go downstairs in the middle of the night to take another one. And I look on the bottle, it said Vicodin, and it, you know, the whole skull and crossbones, don't, you know, don't think, don't talk, don't walk, all the things
Don't
that
drive,
I knew I want, that I wanted, all that. That's how whacked out my brain was at 14. And when I saw there was only 2 pills left, my mom, the next morning, you know, when she woke up to make me breakfast, I go downstairs and Mom, my tooth is killing me. We got to go to the dentist. I think I have a bad infection. And as a loving mother who wants to see their son suffer. And she took me that day to the dentist and he wrote a prescription in front of her, probably 8 or 10 Vicodins.
So for the sake of time, and because I know we don't have a lot, you got a flight, but that starts there. It plants this seed. It digs this clause in.
Yep.
And now you're obsessed.
Yep.
And you're at the same time that you're making money, doing your cards, doing all this stuff, you use your entrepreneurial creativity to make sure you keep getting more.
Yep.
More. And was it always what's the category?
Opiates.
The opiate. Was it always opiate driven? Was it ever like cocaine or alcohol, any of those types of things?
Yeah, before I became an agent, it was everything: cocaine, ecstasy, whatever, acid, but whatever it was that I could do. But then when I started with magic, I started understanding from my lawyer's morality clauses. And I was like, oh, that's okay. I was like, you know what? I got anxiety, I got sciatica, which was kind of true. And every doctor wanted to give this so-called super agent because they knew what he did and who he worked for, oxys, Vicodins, and Percocets. And that worked for 5 or 6 years.
So it was, in your view, you were doing it legally.
Yep.
You were going to a doctor, getting a prescription for needs imagined or real.
Yep.
But your subconscious was probably telling you it's real.
Yep.
I need this.
Yep.
This is how I'm succeeding. This is how I'm being successful in the card business. This is how I'm being able to sell my business for $1 million. It's how I'm going to get this NSX car, metallic green with the crazy rims. This is my wonder drug.
Yep.
So were you seeing any downside to it at the time?
No. It took about 5 or 6 years.
5 or 6 years.
I was a rock star when I started PMG for a good 5 or 6 years. I was a networking machine. Every major
PMG,
red carpet
Prince
event.
Marketing Group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every major event, when I walked in, it was
You're
just
lit
people
up.
would just gravitate. On top of it, I'm also there with the kings of the kings. So it didn't matter who the celebrities were. They're all coming over to me with their handlers, the companies that might be sponsoring the event. So it was just
why is it, do you think, that some people can get a prescription for an opioid for some sort of pain issue that they're going on in their life, and then that prescription runs out and they're done, they're fine?
Well, you have three different type of people. You've got one that can take it and they take it for pain. You have another person that can take it and realize, ooh, this feels good, but I got to work in the morning, or once I'm done, I could see me wanting to finish this whole entire bottle and getting more. I'm going to flush them down the toilet.
I'm in the second group.
Yeah,
because
the third is me.
Like Vicodin or whatever,
Yep.
or an Oxy or whatever,
Yep.
after surgery or something.
Yeah.
I'm happy. I'm a happy guy for sure. Like, wow, this pillow feels amazing. Laying down
this microphone.
This is unbelievable. This is so good. But then, like, okay. This is probably not a good idea to walk down.
And then you have me.
Yeah,
where one is
you're
too
just
many,
like all in,
and 50 aren't enough.
You're like Jordan Belfort in Wolf of Wall Street. You're going crazy.
Yep.
You ever deal with the Quaaludes and all that stuff?
Oh yeah, the lemon 714s. They were my favorite. We talked about that on a 12-step Zoom meeting a couple days ago, which was
the lemons.
The lemon 714s. Yeah,
Wow.
That's what they were stamped on the back. Love those bad boys.
That's crazy,
Yep.
crazy. So
I could take it.
Tell me how you get where you got, where it's like.
So basically, I was at an event with Smoke and Joe Frazier. It was probably, if I had to guess, 2000, around there. And I was getting ready to go downstairs, and I snorted a couple oxys, and 30 minutes later, I wasn't.
So snorting it was better than ingesting it?
The what?
Snorting was better than just taking the pill?
What happened is real junkies like myself, the real degenerates, you realize that you can't take it anymore, like when you have food in you or in your stomach, because it just takes too long. So you either let it melt under your tongue and goes right into the blood vessel and hit the brain, or you snort it and it works just as quick. And within 5 minutes, you're freaking zooted and you're ready to go to work and do your thing. This was the first time ever that it was literally 30 minutes later and I didn't feel anything. Like something happened where it felt like my kryptonite. And for the next probably 4 or 5 years, I was in a place of hell trying to reclaim that feeling and take whatever I could freaking take.
So you hit a threshold where your tolerance was so high. How many were you taking at your absolute peak?
I mean,
to try and feel something?
I put it this way. I tell people I was more of an addict, not as much of an abuser, maybe 12, 15 pills a day. I know people that were taking
that's still
so
a lot,
much more.
man.
Oh yeah, no, it was, 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, 3 at night.
Wow.
I'd set my alarm because I used to do international business. My then wife knew that there was something wrong, but she couldn't do anything. I would set my alarm at 3 in the morning, literally wake up, snort 3 painkillers, and go into the living room of our apartment in New York City and get on the phone and start calling people in Australia and England, and became a way of life.
Wow.
And people were so blinded by the fact that I built up such a big agency.
Success.
He doesn't have a problem.
People were willing to look the other way.
He
because
doesn't
of
have a
success.
problem.
Yeah, he's fine.
And,
It's like in Wolf of Wall Street when Matthew McConaughey says, it's his first week.
Yeah.
Use this cocaine. Make friends with this thing.
Yep.
No, I'm good. Give him a break. Keep some more stuff coming.
Yep.
So, all right. So there's got to be some damage now caused to your body, to your mental state, to your relationships, to your everything. When do you finally hit bottom and realize I'm done?
So I had multiple overdoses in 2007.
Like in the form of calling 911?
It happened here for NBA All-Star Weekend in 2006, I think.
In Vegas.
During NBA All-Star Weekend. Yeah. I snorted painkillers to some Tuxenex cough syrup that a doctor gave me for bronchitis, and had 2 vodka, Red Bull, and cranberries. And within 5 minutes, I remember my eyes kind of going behind my head and foaming at the mouth, and my palms were sweating like crazy. My heart's palpitating, and all I'm doing is looking up at the sky where my wife is then panicking, my then wife, and I'm like, God, don't take me. I'll never do it again. And paramedics came up, needles in my arm, oxygen mask on my face, and EKG machine, and I'm just praying to God, don't take me. I don't know what the heck I just did. And I never made it out that night. But, you know, the crazy thing was I remember going to the bathroom at like 3 a.m. My eyes are bloodshot. My pupils are dilated. And I'm like looking at myself like I'm disgusted. Like, what the heck is wrong with you?
How old are you at this time?
Like, what the heck is wrong with you that you're doing this to yourself? I literally finished the rest of the cough syrup, lay out 3 more, I think probably Percocets at that point. I snorted them, and I go back into bed because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I thought it was the vodka, Red Bull, and cranberry that caused the overdose, the combination of the 3. So I finally took a little bit of accountability, and the next week went to an addiction psychiatrist. He told me I was an opiate addict, put me on Suboxone, but I lied to him too. I was snorting Ambien at night. I was taking Xanax, mood stabilizer, antidepressant, drinking a couple days a week, anything to just numb myself. But the real moment happened July 1st, 2008. My then uncle, may he rest in peace, and his girlfriend, Andrea, at the time, came to visit my mom. They were from Miami, and came to Livingston, and they surprised me at my place in Livingston. And I never met her before. It was the craziest thing. And I don't think I was a spiritual person or anything. And she came in, gave me a hug. How are you? I just opened up to her for some reason. I was like, she goes, yeah, you don't look happy. What's happening? And I told her. She's like, do you realize you're an addict and your life's so manageable? And I said, yeah. She goes, do you realize you're powerless and you have a disease? I'm like, yeah. And she goes, and all this, and she points to all the pictures of me and all these mega superstars. It doesn't mean anything, honey, because you don't mean anything to yourself. Do you want to get help?
Angel showed up.
That broke my soul, and I started to cry. And I said,
angel showed up in human form.
Yep. And
did anybody else try to get through to you and have interventions with you, to have tough love with you, any of your buddies before this person showed up? And somehow got through the walls that you
Magic and Hulk knew how bad it was the year before, and they were worried about me. But again, it's like, the person has to be ready. And my then wife, Steve Simon, that runs my company, to this day, we go back since we were 10 years old, 43 years, but nobody knew what to do. And it was this woman. And so the next day I'm on this detox. And that's when it always gets me emotional because it's always still so raw, which I love. And I came back from the gym on a Sunday night, July 2nd, 2008. And I couldn't do it. I called him up. I said, I'm freaking out. I said, I'm so uncomfortable. I feel like I'm having a heart attack, a stroke. My stomach's upset.
You could die from coming off
I
this
said,
stuff,
I feel like I'm going to freaking puke again. I'm calling the doctor to get what I really want to get. And my uncle picked up the phone. He said, it's the goddamn disease talking. Because you got to freaking surrender already. Enough of this bullshit already. This immature bullshit behavior I've been dealing with since you were a teenager. Get yourself to a 12-step meeting online. You can find them on the internet and put your damn hand up and surrender already. You understand me? And I hung up the phone. I said, there's no effing way. I've been to those stupid meetings years ago. They make no sense to me. And I ran into the bathroom. I went through a bunch of medicine cabinets to find these non-narcotic anxiety pills that Andrea told me I could take during the detox period. And I opened up one of the bottles, and out came 3 Vicodins in my hand, which Simone and I knew, my ex, we were married at the time, that we cleaned out every medicine cabinet of the opiates. But for some reason, this one bottle had some. And it actually seemed like a gift from God in that moment. I was so pumped up, like what a relief. Wow, that seemed like the God sent. That 3 Vicodins came in my hand at a time that I needed them. But God had other plans because it was the first time in my life I surrendered. And I fell on my knees. And I remember it like yesterday. And
what did you do with the 3 pills?
But they were still in my hand.
Okay.
And I remember screaming out to God, God, take the money, take the business, take the notoriety. I can't do this anymore. And it was a white light moment because my right shoulder caught fire. And I heard a voice as I'm on my knees crying, sweating. I heard the voice tell me, I've got you when you're ready. And I stood up and I flushed the pills and wound up in the living room, and there was no Uber. And I'm on the computer finding a 12-step meeting for recovered addicts and alcoholics. And I flag a cab and I go downstairs, and this is gorgeous summer night of July 2nd, 2008. And all I'm thinking is, holy crap, for the first time in my life, I wanted to stay sober more than I wanted to get high. And I walked into this church basement where the 150, 200 addicts and alcoholics who were, all so broken at some point. They were all once of a hopeless state of mind, and they looked happy. They looked fulfilled. And the leader said, is anybody new or coming back? That was the hand of God, because this so-called big-time super agent, it's a fraud. And I said, I'm Darren, I'm sick, I'm suffering, I'm suicidal, I need your guys' help. This big-time, like I said, guy in the sports and entertainment industry couldn't stay sober for more than an hour at a time. And by surrendering in that room, that spiritual connection, there was about a dozen brothers and sisters that came over to me right away. And they said, stick with the winners. Put the 5 A's into your heart and soul, which was attitude adjustment, accountability, acceptance, and action. And they said something that changed my life forever. They said, don't worry about loving yourself, because we're going to love you before you ever learn how to love yourself. And you keep showing up. Don't worry about getting the fellowship, because the more you show up, the fellowship is going to catch you.
So that's been 15 years since then.
Over 15 years ago.
I got to ask a selfish question, and I appreciate your vulnerability and sharing all of that stuff, because I could see you're still right there in that moment. I have one family member in particular that has been really struggling, and I think everybody has somebody.
Everybody.
And was able to get off of, in this case, mostly alcohol, a little bit alcohol, a little bit Adderall, kind of mixed in to feel normal.
Yep.
And without that, literally felt completely disconnected from the world, unhappy, all that. So he was able to successfully get off of the quote unquote medication. But he still struggles with shame, and he still struggles with his own sense of self-worth. He's still embarrassed. That it's like one journey stops, but another journey starts to being able to get a sense of self-worth again, to be able to accept where you are versus comparing, maybe years that you lost or consequences of your actions and those types of things.
Yeah.
How does a person get past the shame? How does a person get past the guilt? How does a person get past the sense of not being worthy?
Well, you could either tell him you met me or show him this interview, because he's obviously got no spiritual faith. He has no core to healing right now. And that's the whole beautiful part of the 12-step fellowship and the 12 steps
That's
of
some
life.
Childhood trauma.
Because we all have childhood trauma.
Yeah.
And to get to the root cause, the reason the 12 steps are so incredible for anybody in life, it was just the first step that talks about drugs and alcohol and being powerless over it. The other 11 steps are all about healing, accountability, having a power greater than ourselves, given the gift of success and life and help and kindness to other people. If you're not working those steps, as somebody that came out of the darkness, you are not going to find the light. You are going to live a very, very dry life. And I can help him. I mean, if he's got the willingness, because I've seen too many people that get clean and sober from whatever the substance might be, but they're just trying to exist.
Yeah.
And there's no therapist, there's no freaking psychiatrist. What I'm a part of is a Bridge Back to Life Fellowship. And there's so many clubhouses in Vegas and all over, the world that we have this incredible, beautiful way of accountability, of acceptance, of, taking your pain and turning it into your greatest purpose. And everybody has had something where we can identify with each other. So there's no judgment, and you can have a bad day or you can have a bad couple days. It's not going to be like your family, your brother, your sister, your mother, your husband and wife, and people are going to criticize you. We're going to welcome you with open arms and show you love and support.
Yeah, trying to figure out that journey as, pardon me, as a family member, as somebody who cares about this person so much. What can I do?
It's very hard for family members. I tell them all the time. A lot of times, family members are just too close, which is why they'll introduce them to interventionists or people that are in the mental health industry. It's very, very hard. I mean, I've sent out enough books to people. I can send them when you could say I was a guest on the show. I've helped a lot of people, man, around the world with my story and my vulnerability. A lot. And it's why I'm so passionate about it, because I know how frustrating it is for family members, because as addicts and alcoholics, substance abusers, and those suffering with mental health, we don't just destroy ourselves. We destroy everybody else around us.
Yeah.
So it's the people on the other side too that are going through the same trauma, because you feel absolutely helpless.
Right. How did you repair your sense of worth, your self-worth? And how did you get beyond the shame of all of the years of deception and deceiving yourself and others? How did you get to the other side, kind of like emotionally, and repair that? Because that can become part of your identity.
Yeah.
I did that.
Yeah.
I own that.
Yeah.
But how do you get out of that and into a place where you can feel good about yourself and be of service to others?
I think, again, the step work for anybody listening, I think the first step is really taking a personal inventory of yourself and then eventually taking an action to be accountable, making amends. I did all that. And then I realized the biggest gift when you're in the world of recovery, especially when it comes to drug addiction and substance abuse, is giving it away. And I don't just give it away in the recovery. I'm always in a place of service for people. So that self-esteem, man, that I was always looking for. It never came from Hulk or Rick or Charlie or Magic, Chevy. It came from doing estimable acts.
Thank you for saying that.
And
I heard that when I watched one of your interviews yesterday. Doing estimable acts is what helps you to build your self-esteem.
Yep.
It's not just in here, it's what you do.
Yep.
Some people say, oh, you're not what you do. You're not what you do. I believe you are what you do.
Yep.
You are what you do in your family. You are what you do with your body. You are what you do with others. Two things make me happy: when I'm growing and when I'm contributing.
Yep.
And I have to have both. If I don't have both, it's not the money.
Yep.
Like, the friend that I lost recently, they did a tribute. Yeah.
Terrible.
So nobody talked about how much money she made when she passed too early.
Mm-hmm.
They talked about all the acts of kindness. They talked about the connection. They talked about living big and bold and being an example. They talked about her facing her fears. They talked about her pouring herself into other people in a way that's going to, she'll live on for a long time through other people.
Yep.
The ability to contribute to other people has, the business gives us an excuse to hang out.
Exactly.
But the ability to contribute to other people is the real juice, isn't it?
That's it, man. There's nothing like it. I found my soul on this journey. I've found my purpose in life. And if I lost the agency tomorrow and the business and the success and the money, you would still be sitting in front of Darren Prince, who's done the work and continues to do the work on sense of self and self-love and kindness and passion and understanding. And that friggin' ego, dead. Because I'm nobody friggin' special. What I want on my tombstone, and hopefully it's 35, 40 years from now, because I'm 53, is a drug addict that went deep through hell and came out on the other side to sprinkle light and hope and recovery across the world to help other people. Nothing about the agency life.
Estimable acts. Fill your life with estimable acts.
Yep.
I think we measure a life by the number of experiences we have, the intensity of those experiences, and the number of people that we can contribute to in some meaningful way.
100%.
Yeah.
That's
so continue the work, my friend. This story, hopefully it connected with everybody. And I'll make sure we have links to everything.
Great.
Your foundation.
Especially, we just did a big fundraiser. So
your foundation, your book, all the different resources, everything in there. There's also a great book by Ryan Holiday, Ego is the Enemy. I don't know if you've ever read that book.
heard of it.
But you'll find it fascinating because you know what
Yep.
ego can do. Most of the time it's misplaced
Yep.
in where it needs to go. It doesn't serve you the
Yep.
way you think it does.
Yep.
A healthy sense of ego is fine. An overinflated or a false sense of ego
Yep.
is disaster.
Yep.
So continue to contribute. Thank you for your time. Thank you for
I'm so glad we're able to
swinging
finally
by.
do this.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to doing
And
a
we're
lot of
going to have
things
a lot
together.
of, like Dave Melcher said, let's focus on 3 things together in the future. Have a lot of fun, help a lot of people, make a lot of money.
Let's
I
do
love
it.
that.
All 3.
Right?
Thanks, brother.
All
Appreciate
right,
you.
you too.
So that's my conversation with Darren Prince. We put all the information in the comments below, in the show notes. Make sure to go check out his book, check out his foundation, take a look at all of this. Share it with a friend more than anything else. Whether they want to learn how to network, how to deal with celebrities, how to face your fears, and one of my favorite parts of the entire conversation, how to build self-esteem by doing estimable acts. That's one that's going to stick with me. I hope it sticks with you. Pay this forward to a friend. Somebody needs to hear it. Give us a review. Make sure to give us a follow. We'd really appreciate it. Until next time, everybody, go out there and make your life amazing. Take care.